You said that, you said in a magazine article that making films was like waiting for planes at Heathrow Airport. So it's obviously not a joyous experience for you.
Well, that's particularly making Python films, actually. I mean, I don't enjoy any of it, frankly. I have to be, but they pay me very well, and I like their company. I mean, Michael makes me laugh. But the process of making these bloody films is hellish. First of all, you have to sit around trying to get 6 people to agree on a script, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. You can't agree on a direction to go in, so you keep writing more and more and more and more material. And eventually you get something and you try and put it together and it's a dog's breakfast, just like Meaning of Life. It's a ghastly mess. Only we've actually constructed a very clever way of trying to persuade people that it holds together, and it doesn't, frankly. And then you have to go and shoot the bloody thing. Well, then you've got Jones directing. Well, he's superb.
He is Welsh, though, isn't he?
Superb but Welsh, as you put it. And it all goes fine, except there's nothing to do, except sit around being uncomfortable for about 8 hours a day. Well, 12 hours a day, actually, because you get up at... You do get up at an appallingly early hour. You're always uncomfortable in Python films, and there's nothing you can learn, because we're all writers anyway, so we write the bloody thing, so we know what it's about. So you just have to sit there doing it like a lot of sort of puppets while they get the special effects right.
But you do remain in good humour.
One less in the next Python film, don't we?
The famous
divided 5 ways, let's face it, it's better than divided 6, isn't it? Huh?
Does he remain in good humour all day long during the filming?
Well, I was extremely surprised in the latest film that we did that John probably had the single most uncomfortable role of anyone in the film.
The Grim Reaper is this, perhaps?
Yes, that's right, the Grim Reaper, which meant spending an awful lot of time in very, very restrictive clothing up on the Yorkshire moors in a single area which has the highest rainfall anywhere in Britain. And we were
really,
all...
Michael? Yes. Does it?
Oh, you're not going to send me up and make me rainfall. Viewers.
Oh, yes.
Should I go on about rainfall?
You had this little gauge.
It's like, you know, trains. Well, I'll talk about trains if you're not careful. And we were all there waiting in drag to accompany John in this sketch, but unfortunately the weather was so bad that John himself had to do it. So the rest of us were sitting in the, I think, the sort of Outward Bound Centre in Malham Tarn. A lot of people in sort of hairy legs and backpacks coming in and finding 3 men in drag watching the television. We waited, and eventually about sort of 12 in the morning, John arrived, soaked to the skin, peeling off this garment, and laughed. He was hysterical. I've never seen John in such a good mood, and totally at odds with everything he's ever said about filming and discomforts. He was laughing and merry and happy as he peeled off his shocking black garments. The shots had been a disaster. The weather was pouring down. He just giggled. He giggled.
I love it. He could go on like this for hours.
From the days when he used to be paid by the word. In a word, Michael, if you have just one word, what is the meaning of life about?
I can't describe it in, as you know, with my disability, in less than about 13 hours of extensive television. But I would say it's probably about that.
John, can you expand on that at all?
No, if I can't hyphenate dog's breakfast, I can't do it in one word.
A paragraph?
It's a lot of sketches that we wrote over an appalling period of time. I think we had about 6 or 7 sessions of about a month each, spread out over 4 years, and eventually we nearly abandoned it at the beginning of this year. And dear old Terry, who is...
Jones.
Terry Jones. He is terrific, because he actually... He got us off our arses one breakfast time, and we had a shape of a film by lunchtime. And it was all sort of tribute to him for doing that.
When your face crops up in front of a British audience, there is an expectation of fun, of you pressing tape recorders up your nose, a lot of zaniness. But with The Missionary, you've opted for a gentler story. And is there something counterproductive about your image when you then play somebody who isn't a laugh at every phrase of the film?
Well, yes, it does. It's obviously going to worry some people to start with, but I think one has to make that break, and I wanted the Missionary to be so different from Python that people would see it as quite a different sort of film, not a Python film that hadn't quite worked. And just the viewings we've had, people have come up and said, it isn't Python, is it? You're not doing Python, but we did enjoy it. Yes, there was some other element they got out of it.
And what is it about Privates on Parade that makes it worth turning into a film?
Well, it's, to me, such an interesting mix of elements. Because you have the music, which I think is terrific, Dennis King stuff, because I find that the tunes stay in my head, which is my definition of what I like about a musical. Very good lyrics. You have a lot of interesting stories. one or two of them are straight. There's a love story that's straight, and the sort of arms-running plot that is quite straight and leads to a rather dramatic finish. And then you have a number of very interesting characters, and the whole thing written with Peter Nichols' comic touch, so there are little laughs everywhere.
But despite your disaffection with hanging around film sets, you've made yet a third film this year, your Blind Pew in Yellowbeard. Who is Blind Pew? Can you give us
Well, he's a terribly dangerous blind man, which I think struck me as an interesting challenge, because somebody once challenged W.C. Fields. I'm back on the talkie, aren't I?
You are, yes, you're doing extremely well. Don't worry.
Shall I keep on?
Wait about a minute, you've got another 3 hours.
Right.
Don't worry, you can go to bed if you want.
You know the W.C. Fields story? Somebody said, Bill, you can't make jokes about everything. And he said, give me an example. And he said, you can't make a joke about a blind man. And he consequently made a film in which he actually made a blind man funny. But it's very clever the way he manipulated the audience's responses in order to make them able to laugh at a blind man. Well, I play a most horrible blind man who kills 27 people quite early on. So that I don't think there's a great deal of sympathy left for me. It'll be quite an interesting experiment to see whether I can make people laugh at him.
One thing I wanted to ask you both. You were wafted to fame on audience laughter. And the one thing you don't get when you're making movies is just that. You can go and sit in it later, but during the day. Don't you miss that high, John? When you came here every Sunday and you did Fawlty Towers and people bellowed at the material you and Connie had written, it must have been a good feeling. And don't you miss it?
Yes, yes, it's right. It's right. It is a lovely feeling when an audience laughs. It's one of the... It really lifts you. It really makes you feel good. And I don't know, because you see the other side of it is audiences always scare me. And I never go in front of an audience. People are surprised because they think after 20 years or however long I've been doing it that you ought to be able to go in front of an audience. But I always get that quiver of anxiety, and the bigger the occasion or the newer the project that I'm trying, the more anxiety there is. And the trouble about having that audience there is that if they're not a very good audience, and sometimes it's not that they're dim. I mean, we had a terrible audience for the second episode of Fawlty Towers, and I discovered afterwards that there were actually 40 Icelanders there. And it's rather glum, vaguely nautical.
All 40. Of Iceland comes from Fawlty Towers?
A vague, fishy smell coming off the front 4 rows, you know, and no laughter at all. So anyway, the audiences make me nervous. So in many ways, I like being without them because I'm more relaxed, and I'm certainly a better performer when I'm relaxed than when I'm nervous.
What would you describe as John's main attribute as a film actor?
Patience.
Lack of patience.
What would you describe as Michael's main attribute?
Well, the fact that he never allows any sort of pulls of silence to hang over the set.
Like now. You see, I couldn't resist that. If I'd have been really comedian worth my salt, I would have left that prolonged pause of silence.
Leave another pause.
But I can't. I have to speak. I have so much to say to the world, Ian.
Yeah.
I have so much to say to the world. I see that little red light on the camera there, and I have to tell them.
There he goes. No Irish blood.
Well, just tell us,
Christmas.
in this festive week of Christmas, coming up in a few days, how are you going to spend it, Michael?
Well, I shall be quietly at home with my family and other people's families and a few dancing girls. Oh, I may get a goat or two. Obviously, we'll be just absolutely as normal.
John?
I shall be turning down interviews.
Do you get the phone calls on Christmas Day?
Oh, the whole time, particularly the gossip columnists.
To cheer you both up, I know you're both regular viewers of this programme, and you probably have heard the only way to win a Film 82 sweatshirt is to win the competition. But being the end of the year, we have 2 left, so happy Christmas to each of you.
Oh,
Film 82 T-shirt! Oh!
Terrific.
That's not really my colour.